Well, hello, my name's Graham Church. Welcome to this fluoride-free meeting tonight. It's good to see we've got two councillors here, hiding in the back. Phil Hooper, known as Hoops, and Tony Todd, both new councillors. Thanks for coming along, guys. It's good to have someone from the council here. And you thought you could hide down the back, didn't you? But you couldn't quite. Just some housekeeping. The exits out the door at the back, turn right out into the side car park and then move out to the road, with a footpath beside the road. There's also, there's also another exit here. If that area's on fire, go this way. There's also toilets down that way. And also at the door, on the table there, you'll see a donation box. We run these meetings on a shoestring budget. And we've got room hire, we've got projector hire, and we've got travel, all those costs. So if you could see yourself free to put some donation, that would be very much appreciated. And I notice a lot of people have already, so thanks very much for that. Also on the table over there, there's books, Fluoride Free New Zealand books, $20 each, and I know you can buy some too. Also, we'll be putting on some coffee and tea later. I did want to stay and have coffee and tea. And I'd like to thank Abe Colkin, who's Abe on there. Thanks, Abe, for bringing the tea and coffee along. And also Dave McFarlane, thanks, Dave, for your help too. Much appreciated. I think I've covered everybody. I'd like to also introduce Kane, Titchener, and Mary Byrne from Fluoride Free New Zealand, who are going to be presenting tonight. But just before I let them talk, hello, welcome. I'd just like to go back to the early year 2000s when my late brother Don Church ran a very extensive campaign to keep fluoride out of the Ashburton water. And because of his effort, and largely because of his effort, the Ashburton people, you people, voted to keep fluoride out of our water. And it's been like that right up until now. And now recently, when Ashley Bloomfield left, he said that all the councils had to put fluoride in. It was going to be mandated, so your vote is going to be overridden, unfortunately, eventually. So far, our council hasn't been asked to do it, but it's probably coming. The Greymouth Council, the Grey District Council, has been asked to put it in Greymouth, and they're pushing back at the moment and deferring it, so it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Anyway, without any further ado, I'll hand the meeting over to Kane and Mary. I'm not sure who's going first. Mary, all right. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham. Thanks, Graham, for organising all of this. And before I get started, I'd just like to acknowledge Graham's late brother Don as well, and Robin is here. Don was really instrumental in stopping fluoridation in Ashburton, which was really a feat, because it's really quite hard to stop fluoridation once it's in. It's a lot easier to keep it out if it's not in already. So anyway, I've been researching fluoridation for 24 years now, because the Lower Hutt City Council wanted to fluoridate the suburb I was living in. And the more research I did, the more I realised how dangerous fluoridation is, and that we really, really shouldn't have it. So let's make sure this works. Oh, it's not. It's showing that something's gone wrong with this. It's like. See, it's moving that, but not the main screen. Oh, we had it all working originally, and then I don't know what's happened, because now when I try to change the screen, it's not going. But anyway, just to keep talking. What we're going to talk about tonight is that fluoridation does not produce dental decay. That we'll talk about the mandates that the government is, taking over and is dictating to the whole country. That fluoride, that the fluoridation chemicals that they put into the drinking water is indeed toxic waste. It absolutely is that. Oh, thanks. Right, I'll just see. Right, so that's what we're talking about. So there's only 21 councils that have it at the moment, because most councils in New Zealand have never actually had fluoridation. It's the big councils that have had it. Right, only 8 countries in the world have more than 50% of their drinking water fluoridated, which is not what I was ever led to believe years ago. It's not what I believed. So in Europe, there's 98% of European countries or 98% of their water supplies are not fluoridated. Some of them had it originally and they stopped, like in the 70s, years and years and years ago, they stopped fluoridation. And some countries have some of their salt fluoridated, just 4 countries, which is a lot different than putting it in your drinking water. Now, the reasons being, this one here is from France. So what they're saying is that fluoride chemicals are not included in the list of chemicals for drinking water due to ethical and medical considerations. And in Germany, the argument against it is that it's problematic in the nature of compulsory medication. So we all should realise that compulsory medication is not a good idea. I would hope everyone understands that. Now in Europe, what we can see is that dental decay has declined just as much in all of these countries as it has in the fluoridated countries of Australia, Ireland, New Zealand, United States. And in the words of Professor Paul Connett from the Fluoride Action Network in the USA, their teeth are just as good, if not better, than ours. Now, so even fluoridation proponents now agree that fluoride, if there's a benefit from fluoride, it's topical rather than systemic. It's not from drinking it. So the Ministry of Health no longer promote fluoride tablets. So I hear lots of people saying, who actually say don't want fluoridation, say, well, why can't we just give fluoride tablets to people? Make fluoride tablets free and the people that want it can have it. But there's really no point, because it doesn't work by swallowing. It works on the outside of the teeth. So the Ministry of Health no longer recommend the fluoride tablets. And then in Hamilton in 2013, we had a big tribunal with the council. So we had the people wanting fluoridation stopped and the people wanting it for. We had an hour and a half of our experts and an hour and a half of their experts, and then we had the public all come through and give submissions like 1 to 5 minutes. And that went on for 3.5 days. So anyway, Dr. Robin Wyman, who used to be a chief oral health advisor at the Ministry of Health, he got up in front with the council and all the audience there, and he said that he agreed with us that the effect is topical rather than systemic. And so then as he actually says, so the question becomes, why would we be drinking it if the benefit is a surface benefit? And it's like, well, yes indeed. Why would we be doing that? It's completely illogical. And so what he did is he gave this explanation, and he said that when you drink fluoridated water, it goes through your blood, then 50% lodges in your bones and soft tissue, which I don't think many people in fluoridated areas are aware of. That every time they have a glass of water, they're getting fluoride stored in their bones and soft tissue for no good reason. And then he says, during the day, a little bit comes out of your blood, goes back through your salivary glands, and a little bit comes out, giving your teeth this topical benefit, which is kind of a theory, but it's not the original theory that fluoridation was based on. Originally, it was that you drink fluoridated water, children drink it, and it makes their teeth more resistant to decay because it shreds the enamel. But that's by the by. That's been by the by for 20 years, 20 odd years, but we're still doing fluoridation. So his theory, his new theory, the reason it's preposterous is that the amount of fluoride coming out of your salivary glands is 0.016 part per million. Now the Ministry of Health recommend that even children have adult strength fluoride toothpaste at 1,000 parts per million rather than the 400 parts per million that you get in child strength toothpaste. So why would you need 1,000 parts per million if 0.016 works? It doesn't. 0.016 does not provide a topical benefit. So, the New Zealand school dental statistics have around 45,000 children for 5-year-olds and year 8. So every year they provide a spreadsheet and they display the data in terms of the percentage of children caries-free, so they haven't got any dental decay at all, and the level of decay, missing or filled teeth. And what they do is they cut that into fluoridated and non-fluoridated areas. So you can see the data. Anyone can go to the Ministry of Health's website and find this information. So what they're saying, what the data shows, is there's no difference. This is the latest data, 2021. There's no difference for 5-year-olds. And as you can see, the non-fluoridated areas got slightly better, fluoridated stayed the same, but really there's just no difference. And that's the amount of decayed, missing or filled teeth. Actually non-fluoridated is a little bit better. But there's really nothing in there if you were really to get into the statistics of it. And this is what's happened in Ashburton since fluoridation was stopped. So these data points here are from an Official Information Act request. And the latest was from John, who's sitting here, John. And what it shows is that from 2002, when it was stopped, this red line, dental decay in children went down, just continued to go down. So what would have been said at the time was if you stop fluoridation, the children are going to have really bad teeth. But that didn't happen. And then in Methven, the black line, that went down the same, and then the average for New Zealand, the blue line. And then what we see is if it had been true that dental decay was going to go up, over the 6 years, from age 6 to age 12, this is what would have happened if 40% reduction in dental decay was correct. The dental decay in Ashburton would have gone up like this, and then, presumably, tracked down the same as New Zealand. But none of that happened. So we're all being told in New Zealand that we have to have fluoridated water because it reduces dental decay by 40%. But there's no proof to that. What there is a belief, and they just keep saying it. Maybe the batteries are running out. But also what we do know is that in fluoridated areas in New Zealand, the children have twice as much dental decay. So there hasn't been a lot of study on it, which there should have been, but the powers that be don't seem to want to study this very much. And the ones that we have had are these, and they've shown consistently that you have about twice as much dental fluorosis in fluoridated areas than you do in non-fluoridated areas. And also what that tells us is children are already getting enough fluoride, and that's from all sorts of places, like toothpaste, drinks that are made in fluoridated areas such as Waitakere, food, all sorts of things. We already know that children get too much fluoride. So dental fluorosis oh, I didn't want to play that. Am I going backwards? Nearly there, I think. I'm way forward. Somehow or other that's clicked all the way. Okay, right up. I think maybe the batteries aren't the greatest. Okay, so this is what dental fluorosis looked like. This is mild dental fluorosis, and this is a boy that I know in Wellington. Now what that means is that his teeth didn't form correctly. The Ministry of Health tell you that dental fluorosis is just cosmetic and we shouldn't worry about it. But if someone's overexposed to lead, they get a thin blue line on their gum, and no one says, don't worry about it because you don't see your top gum, it would be alarming if we had 30% or 15% or even 5% of children with a thin blue line on their gum. Yet we've got a big percentage of children with some form of dental fluorosis. Might not, very mild, will just be little white bits at the end, but it's still an indication of overexposure. Now remember, fluoride is not a nutrient in any sense whatsoever. It's a poison. Now you might have to do it because it's, oh there we go. Okay, so fluoride is not even something that your teeth need, which is something I used to think, but you don't even need it for your teeth. So what it is in fact is a waste product from the phosphate fertiliser industry. Now, the smoke coming out from the phosphate fertiliser industry is too toxic to go into the air, lands, sea, lakes, rivers or sea. But if they put it through our public water supply, they can drip feed it through that way and they get rid of a toxic waste. I think maybe you have to do it. Okay. Yeah, so just saying this, so this is how they get it is the phosphate rock is rich in fluoride, and so they add sulfuric acid to remove the fluoride, and then they get two toxic gases and they capture them by wet scrubbers. So they spray water into the chimneys and that combines with the chemicals and it causes the fluoride to come out. Then they have great big holding ponds of toxic fluoride that they've got a problem with now. Yep. So they remove a bit of the silica and then they sell it to the councils, and we drink some of that. A whole lot of it just goes straight down the wastewater and into the sea eventually anyway. But as I was saying, some of it comes to us and goes into our bloodstream, etc. And this is this is an ad that we put on the TV in 2016. So that explains it. So we'll just play that.
Hydrofluorosilicic acid, commonly known as fluoride, is a waste product collected from the chimneys of the fertilizer industry. This fluoride chemical also contains traces of lead, aluminium, mercury, arsenic, and sometimes uranium. It is banned from being released into the air, sea, lakes, and rivers because it is toxic to animals and the environment. Instead, ratepayers' money buys this toxic chemical handled by workers wearing hazmat suits. Hydrofluorosilicic acid. This fluoride is as good as water. Find out the facts. Visit fluoridefree.org.nz. Hydrofluorosilicic acid.
So what happened was people complained to the Advertising Standards Authority because they thought that can't be true. I mean, you know, honestly, they can't really be putting toxic waste in our drinking water, can they? But anyway, we provided the information, we provided the evidence that in actual fact that is what they are doing. So the complaints to the Advertising Standards were not upheld. We actually had another one more recently in the same thing. So that's the facts. So this is what's happened over the years. We feel this was in response to us being successful in having it stopped in quite a number of places and putting a lot of pressure on Wellington and Auckland. So the National Government brought in a bill which was going to shift decision making from the local councils to the DHBs, and it was actually in response to the councils because the councils didn't like being the meat in the sandwich because we were coming along with this sort of information, and then the Ministry of Health was saying, oh no, you've got to do it, and they were like, that's awkward for them because they have to stand up against the Ministry of Health, and a lot of people might not have realised the media don't do very good in-depth studies or give us a lot of information, tends to be quite biased, so a lot of people don't know the full story about just about anything. But anyway, then 2017, Labour Greens New Zealand First got in, and there was a really good New Zealand First MP called Clayton Mitchell from non-fluoridated Tauranga. So what we find is people in non-fluoridated areas are much more likely to be against fluoridation because they'll stop and think about it. I haven't had it, do I need it, do my children need it? People in fluoridated areas, it's quite difficult to get through to them. So anyway, Clayton Mitchell talked to the New Zealand First, his caucus, and they managed to keep the bill from going through. Then 2020, Labour got in and they've just put it through, and then they've removed the DHBs as well. So, so now it goes directly to the Director General of Health. And Ashley Bloomfield, I think go to the next one. Ashley Bloomfield has directed 14 councils so far to have fluoridation, and the new Director General of Health, Diana Safati, she has sent a letter to another 22 telling them that they will have to do fluoridation, and but Ashburton hasn't been told to yet. So all they have to do, this is the legislation, this is directly from the legislation, all they have to do is look at the evidence on the effectiveness of adding fluoride to the drinking water to reduce dental decay, and whether the benefits outweigh the costs. So they don't have to look at any other bodily function. They don't have to sort of have a think about, does it cause arthritis, does it lower thyroid, is it neurological, nothing like that. They just have to do this. And the councils will be fined $200,000 plus $10,000 every day after that if they don't comply. So, just saying that, no directive has been yet sent to Ashburton. Now the letter that's come from the Director General of Health to the councils, this is what they say they've looked at. They've looked at the Cochrane collaboration from 2015, and that's for the dental decay to decide whether or not it's beneficial. And these are the two other things, the New Zealand report 2014 and an update by the Chief Science Advisor. So I'll just look at the Cochrane collaboration because Kane will speak after me, I'm nearly finished. So the Cochrane collaboration, it did say that fluoridation was effective at reducing levels of tooth decay, but all of those results were on old studies before we had fluoride toothpaste. So, and then they said there was very little contemporary evidence, and then an estimate of 40% of people having some form of dental fluorosis, showing the first outward signs of being poisoned by fluoride. No evidence that if you stop fluoridation, tooth decay will go up. No evidence that it reduced inequalities. No evidence that it benefited adults, and 97% of the studies were biased anyway. So, so in the New Zealand report, so in 2014, in response to people going to a big meeting in Auckland and doctors and dentists actually standing up and talking about this, and we had a professor come over from the USA, and a couple of the councillors came to this big meeting in Auckland, and they went back to the Auckland Council and said, what's the story with this? The CEO then wrote to Professor Gluckman, who was the Chief Science Advisor at the time, and said, well, what's the story? So he talked to Professor Skegg, who was the Royal Society of New Zealand, and this is an OIA, this is an email we got out of the OIA, and they said, talking to each other, we already know fluoride's good, basically, and, we'll just do some report, but we'll just rely on everything that's already been said before. And so they took 2.5 months to complete that study review. Now, we did a critique of that. We had an international critique, and we had scientists that presented at the National Toxicology Program in the USA, which is a very high scientific panel there, and they said that we should stop fluoridation. And then there was just prior to that report, because this is where the first neurological stuff had happened, was In 2012, there's been a meta-analysis that was done by some Harvard researchers, and they looked at the studies that came out of China, because parts of China have high amounts of naturally occurring fluoride that they're really worried about. So they take fluoride out of the water as much as possible. So this meta-analysis, because these studies have now been translated into English, and they found that 26 of the 27 studies showed lowering of IQ at an average of 7 IQ points. Now, what happened in the New Zealand report done by Gluckman and Skegg is they wrote the summary of that. When they were looking at neurological issues, what they said was, oh, less than 1 IQ point is nothing. Don't worry about it, you know. They said, likely to be measurement or statistical artifact of no functional significance. So straight away we wrote to them and said, you've got that wrong. It wasn't less than 1 IQ point, it was actually less than 1 standard deviation. So 1 standard deviation in IQ is actually 15 points. And what that meta-analysis had found was 7 IQ points. So it was actually even less than 1/2 of a standard deviation. Now 7 IQ points, if we go to 5 IQ points in fact, is significant, particularly across a whole population. Because what you do in a whole population is you halve the number of geniuses and you increase by 50% the intellectually impaired. So it's not of no functional significance, it's actually hugely important. Now I'll hand over to Kane and he'll explain the neurological studies that have all come out these days. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mary. So I've been working on stopping fluoridation in New Zealand for the last 10 years, all as a volunteer. We've received no funding for it at all, really. There's all we're funded on is donations and people buying some books for $20 and helping out where they can. So please buy a book. The most recent important study that people need to understand is the National Toxicology Program report that's been in the final stages of being published. There's a meeting on the 4th of May and the 16th of May, and they're all public online. You can go and watch those YouTube clips of the National Toxicology Program. The Fluoride Action Network will have those as well. Basically, they're finalising a 6-year review of fluoride's neurotoxicity. The NTP is an interagency collaboration between held within the US Department of Health and Human Services. It's a collaboration between the National Institutes for Occupational Safety and Health, which is a part of the CDC, the Food and Drug Administration, and the National Institute for Environmental Health Sciences. So this is the top organisation in the world that is doing this research. The NTP focuses on testing, research and analysis of agents to identify toxic effects. It provides information to strengthen the science base, and it informs decisions for how regulatory agencies to safeguard the public health. So this is the organisation that you want doing a neurotoxic review on fluoride, okay? So I just want to point out this is the top. So anything that the Ministry of Health says that this is a poor report or the organisation is weak or anything like that is absolute rubbish, right? And the other thing is that this organisation has got integrity because it took 6 years to review this and get it finished, and there's been multiple peer reviews internally and 2 external peer reviews by the National Academies for Science and Engineering and Medicine, okay? So I'll get to that shortly as well. But the review was issued in 2 parts, a monograph, which is a written document, and a meta-analysis, which is a grouping of research. And they concluded that the prenatal and early development exposures can reduce IQ. So by how much? Basically they identified 55 human IQ studies, 52 of which showed a lowering of IQ. Now these IQ studies were both at low and high exposures, okay? But there was a 7 IQ point reduction. This mirrors the 2012 study that Mary just mentioned with the 26 out of 27 IQ studies. Okay, so the New Zealand government has known about this for 10 years. Now, of those studies within the 55, 19 were identified as high quality. High quality is in terms of the data, creation and implementation of that research. Okay, so not all studies and research is equivalent. what they found was that there was 18 of those 19 high quality studies showed a lowering of IQ. Now of those studies, they identified that there was no safe threshold of fluoride in water. Okay, I just want you to think about this, no safe threshold of fluoride in water. And of the studies that of the 19 high quality, the NTP found Canadian and Mexican cohort data. They were the strongest at 0.7 parts per million. So for your benefit, we fluoridate between 0.7 and 1 parts per million in New Zealand with a target of 0.85. Okay, so these studies were at 0.7 parts per million. Now they found a lowering of IQ between at 5 IQ points for 1 milligram per litre. So we're lowering our children's IQ in New Zealand 3 to 5 IQ points right now on average. That's on average. So the range of these studies goes from 3 to 9 IQ points. Some kids in New Zealand right now are having their IQ lowered by 9 IQ points. See that sink in for a second? Now the American Dental Association, for some reason dentists they just love fluoride. They love fluoridation, right? They wanted an additional peer review by NASM. Okay, I mentioned before that this NASM's like the top science organisation in America. Okay, they wanted a third peer review. The NTP rejected this review, so they had the NTP has just been done an internal review by itself, the Board of Scientific Counsellors. That you can go and see those meetings on the 4th and 16th to verify that. And they said we've had enough of the review. Thanks very much. So the efforts to delay were rejected by the NTP. They're going to try and get this published as soon as possible. That's right now. So we're waiting for this publication to come out, like literally within the next week or two. Who knows when it's going to come, but that's the plan. They also wanted a disclaimer for the dentists. The dentists wanted a disclaimer. And the NTP said that they've already responded to this multiple times through back and forward correspondence with the dentists, all right? The dentists do not want this to come out. They've been promoting this for 70 odd years, okay? This is going to be a bombshell for these guys when it comes out. Very unfortunate. So, just read this out. NTP repeatedly repudiated the ADA, American Dental Association, in documents shared in March. The highest quality studies showing lower IQs in children were done in optimally fluoridated areas. That's the Mexican and Canadian cohort data that they're referencing there. This isn't me, my interpretation, this is their words, okay? So basically, what has the Chief Science Advisor responded to? They have not actually responded to this research yet. They haven't actually come out and made any statement about this research. So this is the latest information that you're seeing tonight. But in 2021, they did an update on where neurotoxicity was at. And funnily enough, they found that there's no problem at all. So they've come out and said there's no issue at all with fluoride in the water. And basically they're saying the NTP report before said that they found no issue at 1.5 parts per million. That could have been dealt with margin of safety, where you take a factor of basically 100. So there was research to say that 1.5 there was damage at neurotoxicity, take a factor of 100 down. So basically they're in denial, these people. This is straight out of the NTP report, and this graphic shows exactly what we are looking at here. So at 1.5 milligrams per litre, which is the maximum you can have in New Zealand, you've got a 6 IQ point reduction. There's your range. And at 0.7, you've got a 3 IQ point reduction. So if you follow the line down to about a 1 part per million, you've got a 5 IQ point reduction. That's why we say you've got a 3 to 5 IQ point reduction on average in New Zealand right now. This is the comparison with lead. So what we're saying, I'm doing talks around the country and speaking to councils and community boards all through the country, saying that fluoride is the new lead. So if you look at the NTP report that's been published, about to be published to the Lamphere 2005, we've got a very similar curve. So in terms of, say, 7 IQ point reduction from about 97 down to 90 for lead, and the fluoride as you've seen before there. So there's multiple comparisons with lead that you can make. The industry trying to protect lead and trying to protect fluoride. There is the 4.5 IQ points reduction, dramatic loss comparable to what you'd see with lead exposure. Fluoride seems to fit in with lead, mercury, and other poisons that cause chemical brain drain. So that's Dr. Philippe Grungy. I'm just going to grab some non-fluoride water. He is the mercury expert for the United States EPA, and he is part of the court case that the United FAN Fluoride Action Network is taking against the US EPA. As Mary mentioned before, a 5 IQ point reduction, you halve the number of geniuses if there's a 5 IQ point shift across the population. So lead's impact was halving the number of geniuses, and you're increasing by half the number of mentally challenged. So in Auckland, as an example, we've had fluoridation's been going since 1966. So we've had 3 generations of this effect, right? So we're thankful for Don Church. Yeah? So I just want to go through some studies individually very quickly. BASH 2017, this was the first of the Mexican Canadian cohort data. In conclusion, this study highlighted higher prenatal fluoride exposure and general range of exposure reported for other general population samples of pregnant women and non-pregnant adults was associated with lower scores. Green et al. Is another one. It's a 4.5 IQ point drop in boys. This study gained a huge amount of media. It was published in the top journal in Pediatrics, the American Medical Association journal. It compared fluoridated and non-fluoridated areas. And as I said, there's a sort of thing around, oh, it's just one study. It's just one study, right? This supported BASH. And when we did an ad in the New Zealand Herald, 7 Sharp, I think it was, they did a piece on it and said, oh, but it's just one study. We had all the other studies listed on the New Zealand Herald ad as well, right? So the media is fully involved with this, right? And the editors concluded commentary stressing the rigour of the study. So what we've got is a quick commentary. It's going to be a little bit loud maybe, so just see how we go.
We'll get to that, but tell us the findings.
All right, the overall finding was that, as you would expect, that mothers who lived in fluoridated areas had a higher fluoride concentration in their urine and a higher fluoride concentration intake during pregnancy than mothers who lived in the non-fluoridated areas. And there seemed to be an effect upon their kids' IQ. Now, this effect was only seen in boys, where a 1 milligram per liter increase in the maternal urinary fluoride concentration was associated with a 5-point lower score on the boy's IQ.
Right. And effect size, which is sizable.
Which is sizable.
On par with lead.
Right, it is, and in girls they found actually a non-significant increase in their IQ. The effect size is really quite large because I think you think about it really in terms of not the individual child so much as the shift in the curve.
Right.
And the shift in the curve now being shifted to the left for boys, that's a real concern because then you look at the tails and the tails may be quite low.
Right.
So I think that the results are really startling.
So it was talking about the tails, which I was talking about before, right? TIL 2020 is the infant formula. So what people don't know is breast milk has got about 0.004 parts per million fluoride. If you reconstitute formula with fluoridated water at 1 part per million, you're giving that child 250 times the level of fluoride that's in mother's breast milk. 250 times. So that's just a 9 IQ point reduction on that one. Goodman 2022, it came out in August. This showed that there was a 5 IQ point reduction if the pregnant mother was not iodine deficient. But if you were iodine deficient, there's a 9 IQ point reduction. 9 IQ point reduction. So this is this information and research it's just like a tsunami now. It's just flooding out, and we're getting nothing from the Ministry of Health. Now, what they use is Broadband 2015. Okay, they use this one study. It's cited by the pro-fluoridationists. It's not considered high quality by the National Toxicology Program. I'll go through what they specifically say shortly, but basically there's virtually no children in the control group. What they use is the Dunedin longitudinal data, which is a pretty famous data set, and we probably all know about it. But basically what they do is compare 990 children in Dunedin with 99 children in Mosgiel, which was not fluoridated at the time. But what they don't do is they don't take into account the 139 kids who are taking fluoride tablets. Who do you think, Scott, who's going to be taking the fluoridated tablets? Probably that lot, right? So what they do is basically there's no control group. And they also didn't account for maternal exposure. So this is what they've got in the NTP report. A frequent critical limitation among the high risk of bias studies was a lack of information regarding exposure or poor exposure characterizations. In one case, multiple sources of fluoride exposure were assessed separately without properly controlling for the other sources of exposure, which could bias the results. Broadbent 2015. The Ministry of Health say that Broadbent negates all of the other research. You are being absolutely lied to. Broadbent, FL goes on. Assess fluoride exposure in 3 ways. Use of community water fluoridation area versus non-fluoridated, use of fluoride toothpaste, or use of fluoride tablets prior to age 5. The same children were used for each analysis without accounting for fluoride exposure through other sources. I'll just jump to the bottom part because I've sort of mentioned that already. Therefore, comparing fluoridated areas to non-fluoridated areas without accounting for other sources of exposure that might occur in these non-fluoridated areas would bias the results toward null. What does that mean? That means the Ministry of Health, if you go and read the Gluckman-Skeet Review and the 2021, 2014 and 2021, they're using this Broadbent study. It is low quality, it shows us absolutely nothing. And the Ministry of Health are pushing this out. By the way, Broadbent is a peer reviewer of the Gluckman-Skeet, the 2021 update for the Gluckman-Skeet Review. I wonder why he gets pushed. So what is the answer? We talk about the Scotland Child Smile Program, and we're obviously a lot of our funds are going towards these sorts of things, where we go to community boards and councils and give what we consider the answer. This is the Scotland Child Smile Program. It's based on toothbrushing in schools, educating in schools, proper checkups and actual monitoring, and it's here. It's all here in information. Now, the interesting thing in Scotland, when they started that, it's been going for 20 years. It's halved the number of general anaesthetics operations relating to tooth decay, not to mention all the other tooth decay, other work and everything else that needs to go on. It's halved the number of general anaesthetics. Now, we get accused of not wanting to stop tooth decay and all of the stuff. You don't want fluoridation, the pain for the children and all that. And they've got this program here from Scotland. It's half the number of general anaesthetics. And we get accused of that sort of thing. We've been pointing this out for, 7 years now. And it's been going on for 20. So these are results comparing New Zealand and Scotland, where Child Smile began. You can see the dramatic improvement. Why do we not have Kiwi Child Smile? Why? Tell me. Okay, so in summary, the NTP fluoride report is imminent to be published. A 3 to 5 IQ point reduction. This is going to be like a bomb gun, drop it off, guys. It's over. So what we need you to do is we need you to actually take some action. You've got to go and contact the district council, go to the community board, or speak to whoever you can in authority, your local MP, and say, I want you to take a look at this NTP report. I want you to look at the Child Smile program, and I want you to see what you can do about this, because this is absolutely unacceptable. And we'll take some questions shortly, but we've got a debate tomorrow night in Timaru. And I'm just trying to promote that really. but that's what we're doing. So we're just normal people trying to spread the word about this. We do not want our children to be poisoned. We do not want our children to be harmed, and we're just doing it for the community. So that's us. Really interested in some difficult questions. But some questions that you've got, and then we can have a bit of a much for coming along, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, I just actually thought of something while I was sitting there. Was there has been a statement of claim filed with the courts. So, in layperson's language, how I would think about it is they've filed a court case. So there's a group in the South Island actually that have done that against the Director General of Health, and they are questioning these premises that the Director General of Health is not really looking at even properly at the tooth decay rates and weighing up whether or not there's a benefit. Now what that means for places like Ashburton is that what the council can do is the council can join that court case. So we need councillors to be pushing that, and we don't think it costs any money, although we're not 100% sure, to join a court case. And also then they can then ask for an injunction and say that they don't want to start fluoridation till the court case is finished. And we've known an injunction something like $2,000 or something. So that's one way to start it off until a lot more people understand the information and and eventually the Ministry of Health have to back down from putting a poison in the drinking water. But as Kane was saying, actually what we really need citizens to go to the website, find out when the next council meeting is, email the council, ask if you can speak at the public speaking time, and then go and give your 5 minutes. Make sure you bring friends along, because it matters that you show public support, because otherwise they just think you're just some sort of crank. So you have to show public support, and you provide the information that we've been providing today. And that really does make a difference. That's how we did stop it in a number of places, the far north, Taumarunui, New Plymouth, Central Hawke's Bay, etc. So we really hope that you guys will take that mantle up, But questions.
Is this NTP report? Is it? Where will that show? How do we? If we want to look at that, where will it?
Yeah, so if you go to fluoride.org.nz, we've got all the links, and you can go to the actual NTP site yourself. Basically, you can have a look.
Through you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
It's a warning, but there was about 1,000 pages, I think.
Yeah, it's 1,500 pages.
Oh,
The monograph isn't quite so long, but the meta-analysis is huge, but it's really good because it's got the reviewers' comments still in there, because it's still at draft. So you see all the reviewers' commenting, you see the NTP, what they're applying, which is really interesting.
If you go, you look at our press releases and things, and fluoridealert.org, you can see all their press releases. It gives a nice little summary, so you can just read those press releases. It's take you a couple of minutes really, and you'll get a sense of what it's all about. So you don't have to read the whole thing, you can just go to those commentaries.
Can I just say something anecdotally? I had 3 kids who were born in the 80s in Ashburton prior to lovely Don taking it out, and I have 2 out of those 3 kids had fluoridosis problems. 2 out of the 3.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I hope one day that there will be class action lawsuits about that, because that is the first outward sign of fluoride poisoning.
Yep.
So, and we know that fluoride's neurotoxic.
South Island group spoke of, were they Christchurch based or lower south?
So basically we're going to, I've so far spoken to the Raglan group and the Waihi Beach group up in North Island, and what we're trying to do is, I'm trying to say to people, no one is coming to save you guys, you are it. You're going to stop fluoridation, you guys here. So you guys need to start a small group or whatever it is, whoever wants to help, and then start pockets of groups through the country. We can help from a national level to provide pamphlets and flyers and other information, but it's this core group here that's actually going to do it. There's no one else that's going to come and save you. So I'm in the Tamaroo area, and I'm basically just taking ownership of trying to stop it there. I've gone so far as speaking to the council for the last 7 years. So they are absolutely sick and tired of seeing me, but I'm also on the Tamaroo Community Board. So I'm actually working at that level. And the other thing I'm trying to do is rally all of the community boards up around the country. So get someone to go and speak to the community boards and get them to join a remit that I'm actually going to start moving. So I'm going to try and move this remit that makes people, they're going to have to look at this National Toxicology Program report. So it's basically democracy working in action. We have to start right from the bottom. So if the councils aren't going to take action, we should definitely go and speak to the council. But if they're not going to take action, we're going to take legal action, which we're doing. New Health New Zealand is doing, and I want to work at the community board level. So this is something you can do. People say, I don't know what to do, I'm just one person. You can speak for 5 minutes at your local community board or council.
We've already created an Ashburton Community General Meeting, and Lauren here is our administrator,
Oh, cool.
and she'd be happy for each one of you to contact Lauren.
Cool.
And yeah, we can crank into it.
Awesome. So there you go. So you have to go to Lauren and go from there. That's cool.
Yeah, that's really good. We can put it on the website too, if you like.
Yeah,
Cool.
fantastic.
Awesome.
Thank you. Anything else? Keep them coming.
It's an election year. Do you think that is there an opportunity here to embarrass the politicians? I mean, when that bill went through, effectively to make fluoridation compulsory, every single MP in Parliament voted for it. So any MP standing here, you can go and say, why did you vote for that? And I'm not going to vote for you this time.
Yeah, what's just being said there, in case you can't hear at the back, is John's just saying that when this bill went through, every politician that was in Parliament at the time voted for it, and since we're in an election year, you know, is this a year to make a difference and hold our candidates to account? Is basically the question. Yeah, and I think absolutely, and particularly if you go to any of those candidate meetings, raise the issue, because if we don't raise the issue, they say that, oh, no one really cares about it and they won't do anything. But if every meeting they went to, somebody talks about it, then they start to realise it's an issue. So you could go to those meetings, bring up the issue, you can email them and put pressure on them, particularly, you know, there's New Zealand First and Democracy NZ and Freedoms NZ that didn't vote for this. So they're the ones most likely that might be able to take a stand, or should take a stand.
So the other thing I'd say is I'd go to a candidates meeting and I'd just ask a question and then let them answer it, give them a pause, and I'd just be saying to them, based on the 6-year review that's been published or about to be published by the NTP, fluoride is neurotoxic, why do you want to put a neurotoxin in the water supply? And don't say anything, just let them themselves put their foot on it, right?
Actually, I was at a National Party candidate thing where it was about health apparently. So I said to Dr. Shane Retty, I said to him, are you aware that the National Toxicology Program, you know, top US government, has produced a 6-year report that shows that fluoride is neurotoxic even at the levels that we're exposed to, and there's no known level where fluoride is not neurotoxic. And so I said, how do you maintain fluoridation? So what's your reasons for continuing fluoridation? And he said, well, you've got your science and I've got mine. So I said to him, well, what's your science? And he said, oh, there's mountains of science. I says, well, name something. He says, look, you've got your beliefs, I've got my belief.
So just to follow on from that, at the same time I was actually emailing the office of Shane Retty and getting this information, because I was trying to give him the information for this, right? But I emailed him the clip from Mary, you can get it on Fluoride Alert, free.org.nz. But basically he came back with, we used this submission from 2017, which references the 2014 Gluckman-Skegg review, all right? So they have got absolutely nothing. This is 6 years old, the science that he's got, and we've got more science, right? So it's just a joke, you know, to be honest with you, right? But just keep raising it with people is the
I think it appears to me that they're only doing this because it's a cheap way to get rid of their toxic filth. That's what they're doing. They don't give a shit about people. They just don't want to spend the money getting rid of their toxins. So let's put it in the water. From what you've said, that's pretty much what they're doing, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's one angle, absolutely. And the other angle is we don't want to say that we were wrong.
Yeah, well, that as well.
Yes, you know, so we can't admit that we were wrong because the UN has a liability on us.
I've been wrong on a lot of things, haven't I?
I've been wrong.
Yeah, they're not admitting anything.
Good point.
Same attitude on all of those things too.
Yeah, a whole lot of people, very embarrassed.
Yeah, they'll be very embarrassed, that's right. And I think there's a quote by somebody famous, and he says, you know, when a man has believed in something and woven it into the thread of his life and promoted it to others, he cannot see even the most simplest of truth. And so that will have happened to a lot of the dentists probably.
What's the general thinking on the councils, the ones you've been working with over time?